Konnichiwa. 今日 we're studying Lesson 10, Kanji. You can follow along by looking at page 334 to 335 in your textbook. This is a list of the images that we've used in this PowerPoint. The first kanji today is jo, or sumu. Jo is the onyomi, and su is the kunyomi. So we see it in combinations like sumu, of course that's going to be the onyomi, the Japanese reading. Also jusho. Jusho literally means, ju means to live, and then sho is place. Now, one strategy for this is that the left radical is person, and the right radical is actually king. So this portion of the kanji is king. Then you have this line at the top here. So a person lives with one master or one king. And the stroke order is quite easy. It's ichi, ni, san, shi, go, roku, shichi. Now notice that these lines are not exactly all equal length, right? The bottom one is a little bit longer, the middle one's a little bit shorter, and the top one's just a little bit longer than the middle one. This kanji is also quite easy. The Japanese reading, the kunyomi, is tada, and the Chinese reading is shou. Notice that whenever we have long vowels, it's always in the Chinese reading. So here's a combination right here we'd see this in. Oshogatsu. Oshogatsu. Sorry, the meaning of this is right or correct. Oshogatsu is the word for New Year. And then here invoking the meaning of correct is tadashi, which means right or correct. So if I said in class, for example, tadashi desu, that's correct or that's right. So one of the strategies for this is it looks kind of like a podium where people stand up for what's right, or you can think of a teacher who corrects things. And the various lines here represent the various angles of that podium. And so here is the stroke order. Ichi, ni, san, shi, go. That one's a little tricky because this stroke here gets done before, say, this stroke here, right? So it's ichi, ni, san, shi, go. This next kanji is nen. So we know a lot of vocab with this in it. Nen is the Chinese reading. Toshi is the Japanese reading. And if you recall, the Japanese reading is the reading of the kanji when it's usually just by itself. So for example, if you look down here, it's by itself, it's read Toshi. But in kanji combinations, you almost always use the Chinese reading. Now that's not 100% rule, that's more like 90-95%. But as you can see up here on the right-hand side, sanensei, third-year student, dainen, meaning the coming year, next year. And then this one is a little bit odd. This is not, for example, kyonen. In fact, it's read kotoshi. And kyonen, with just kyo, actually means last year. So that's really tricky. So put a little asterisk in your brain for that one. This one, I think, looks like a calendar. My student assistant who did this said it takes a year for the rice to be harvested, so you have kind of somebody with a scythe, and then you have maybe rice plants sort of represented here. I think it looks like a calendar with a tack on the left side, and then you have these lines basically that represent the different weeks. Okay, one tricky part about this is people tend to draw that line above here, but it stops right here, so remember not to go above that line. And how you write this is kind of interesting too. It's ichi, ni, san, and then instead of going shi right here, you draw this vertical line. So this is shi, and this is go, and then the last one is the vertical line here. And again, you have a little bit of a sense of a longer line at the bottom here. Not super long, you know, and the middle line is a little bit longer than the top line because it has this stroke here. Okay, this is the kanji for to sell. In the Chinese, or the onyomi, is read by, and then u for the kunyomi, or the Japanese reading. So this is actually a pictograph. You think of it, a samurai, and we chose samurai because remember that samurai has this shape. The small stroke is at the bottom here. The longer stroke is here. Whereas if you're looking at doyobi no do, it's the opposite. The longer stroke is at the bottom, so don't get confused between these. You might recognize this as the right side of yomu. But essentially what this is then, a samurai who's sitting at a table. The table has legs, and here they're selling something. So we find this in uru, to sell. You also find it for baiten. Ten means mise, or shop, so a stall. And then we also find it in jidou hanbaiki, where it's basically automatic selling, and then machine here is this last kanji. And the stroke order for this is quite easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so be careful with those legs there. Sometimes I see people just kind of write like that, or maybe they just sort of like, kind of do this. They do a little bit of a circle here, but really what it is, it's like a katakana do. Maybe not quite, but it has that kind of hook at the end there. This is the kanji for to buy, and it's actually buy is one of the readings, which is quite interesting. Ka is the other reading. So here we have the onyomi bai and the kunyomi ka, and you find it in combinations like kau, kaimono. And here, though, this is a kanji, more of a kanji combination. So we find the onyomi, which is bai, selling and buying. This is actually really close to our kanji for in, which I forget which chapter that was, but it means member, right? So kaisha-in, for example. And all you have is 2 strokes different, where that top part then represents the number 4. And the bottom part actually is a pictograph of a shell, which was ancient money, or served as ancient money. So you have 4 shells with which to buy things with. And so the stroke order is quite easy. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now notice those legs are this. They're not, for example, like this. Okay, there's a difference between the types of legs in different kanji. And the other thing is that the middle part has the 2 strokes in the middle. It's not the stroke for day, or the kanji for day, for example. This kanji means town. The onyomi, the Chinese reading, is cho, and the kunyomi, the Japanese reading, is machi. Okay, so by itself again, with the kunyomi, it's read machi. In combination, for example, you have things like Kitayama cho, which when it's read cho, it almost always means a district. So for example, I live in Indian Battle Heights, so Indian Battle Heights would be more like a cho. It's a district of a town, or a portion of a town. A mayor of a town is a cho-cho, and this is a kanji we're learning in the next couple of slides. And this is really, looks like a little pictograph of a rice field. So the rice field's a bit longer, right? It's not so flat looking, although I guess you could write it like that. And then you have some streets. So just a little pictograph of a town. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this kanji means long, and it is read cho for the Chinese reading, naga for the Japanese reading. And this is sort of a pictograph. I like this little pictograph here. It's a guy with a long nose, and actually then he kind of has a long hat on top as well. But there's his nose. This is kind of maybe like his cheekbone or something. This last stroke here represents his eyeball. It's read nagai. The oldest son is called the chonan. So here you have 2 onyomis for these 2 kanji put together. And then you have things like shacho. the person who has been at the company the longest is the company president. Now this stroke order is a little bit funny. This line here looks like it goes all the way through, but it doesn't. So it's ichi, ni, san, shi, go, and then you continue this line. Doesn't even really have to connect. Roku, shichi, hachi. So we've seen that last set of stroke orders with taberu, where it goes ichi, ni, and then san, right? So you've already seen that before. This next kanji means the way. So it has sort of a concrete meaning of road, but it also means, a way of doing something, right? So do is the Chinese reading, the onyomi. The kunyomi is michi. So by itself, it's read michi, which means the road or the way. And here then you see stuff like shodo, which is the way of writing, meaning calligraphy. You have judo, right? And then you have Hokkaido, which means the northern ocean way or path for Hokkaido. Sort of a way of remembering this is the left radical represents movement. So this thing that looks kind of like a 3 sort of represents movement. You see this in radicals where there's some sort of movement indicated. On the right side, a little trick here. You have 2 pedestrians who are on the edge of the sidewalk. So you have 1, 2, there's the edge of the sidewalk, and there's the pedestrian crosswalk right here, like this, okay? Or you can think of this as, that portion of the kanji right there means jibun no ji. This is myself or I. And so you can think of it as, I'll do it my way kind of thing. But think of, so this is how this goes. You start with this first, which is kind of odd. But ichi, ni, san, shi, go, roku, shichi, hachi, kyu. And then you have ju over here. You got little 3 sort of thing going on. And then it has a tail. How appropriate that we're studying the kanji for snow. We just got 4 feet of snow here in Canada, and it was September 28th, 29th, and 30th. It was crazy. They canceled school. Anyway, this kanji is read setsu for the onyomi, yuki for the kunyomi. So, of course, by itself, you always use the kunyomi. It's yuki. But then you have something like shinsetsu, which means new snow. We also know shinsetsu as kind, but that's a different kanji, right? So Japanese has a lot of homonyms like this. And then you have something like yukidaruma. So yukidaruma means snowman. Daruma is the name of Bodhidharma, who is a Buddhist figure. In any case, on the top we have rain. Okay, so that makes sense. And then on the bottom, we have katakana yo. So I always think of this as yo is sort of a variation of yuki. So instead of yuki, I say yoki, just to remember the kanji. And this is the stroke order. So ichi, ni, san, shi, go, roku, shichi, hachi, kyu, ju, juichi. And don't forget, those strokes in the middle there are like this, right? Think of rain and or in this case snow as being blown in a certain direction. So it's not like this, for example, and it's not like that. Okay, so it all goes in the same direction. Ahatatsu. This is a really easy kanji. It's a pictograph of a person standing. The onyomi is quite interesting. It's ritsu. And the kunyomi, the Japanese reading, is ta. So you get tatsu. Notice also then, we have the kunyomi used when it's an adjective or a verb, right? So some example of when it would be ritsu would be koku ritsu daigaku, which means a national or a public university. And then you have this one, which is very interesting, where the word I is being used as private. So, shiritsu koukou, which means a private high school. And of course, this is a pictograph. My student assistant said, look at my new plaid stand. So that was one version. Or I like to think of it a person standing with the head at the top, the shoulders, the feet at the bottom. And this is the stroke order. Ichi, ni, san, shi, go. Or these don't necessarily have to touch here, like there's a space right there, but they should almost barely touch. This next kanji is one stroke removed from me, which is eyeball. This means self, and it only has a kunyomi here written for us. It's ji. You find it in things like jibun. Jibun means oneself. You also find it in things that mean sort of like self-moving. So a self-moving car, or a self-moving automobile is a car. And then you have jitensha, self-driven car, which is bicycle. And then you have things like jiyu, which means freedom. So you can kind of connect this to the word I, which makes sense. So the I is the window to the soul, in other words, the self. It just has that one stroke there. So I'm not sure how we can account for that one stroke. But here is the stroke order. It's ichi, ni, san, shi, go, roku. And again, don't mix this up with day because it has actually 2 lines in it, right? This kanji means night, and it's read for the onyomi, it's ya. For the kunyomi, you have 2 different ones. It's yoru and yo. And this represents, the top radical represents the sky or something above, basically. And then below you have the person radical. And then this portion is a derivative of the moon. So it's another moon radical. And basically then you think of a person walking beside the moon at night. And it is found in these kanji. So you have yoru, and you have yonaka, which means in the middle of the night, literally midnight. And then konya. So konya is another word for konban. Now, konya isn't used as often, I think, as konban. But you can certainly use it and people understand what you're saying. And the stroke order for this is ichi, ni, san, shi, go, roku, shichi, hachi. This is the kanji for morning. The onyomi is cho. Again, notice all these long vowels you see in the onyomis. And the kunyomi is asa. So you see this in combinations like my asa, every morning, kesa, which this is an interesting reading for this. This is, I believe, ateji. When they just basically assign a reading, you can't break it down. It's just assigned the reading kesa. Then there's this one, choshoku. Choshoku means breakfast. We also know asa gohan, so what's the difference? Choshoku has more of a formal tone to it. And maybe older people might use choshoku. You might see choshoku on a menu, whereas a more common sort of colloquial word is just asa gohan. And the strategy for this one is that you have these pluses here. So it's plus sun plus moon, where basically in the morning the sun and the moon are crossing each other in the sky, and it's morning. Incidentally then, ashita, right here, ashita, is sun, moon, and sun, meaning, the sun comes up today, then the moon comes up, and then the sun comes up, indicating tomorrow. So that's an interesting way also to think of time. And this is the way the stroke order goes. Ichi, ni, san, shi, go, roku, shichi, hachi, kyu, ju, juichi, juni. Last one, this is the kanji for to hold or to have, and it is read ji for the onyomi and mo for the kunyomi. So you have, for example, motsu and motte kuru, and kimochi, like to have a sense or a feeling. The strategy for this one is the left is the hand radical. This is a derivation of the hand radical. And the right is temple. Okay, so it's actually read tera for temple, o tera. So think of a hand holding prayer beads at a temple. Don't mix this up with matsu, which has the left-hand radical is this, right? So think of this as to go. Matsu means to stop or to wait, so to not go. And then if you think of motsu as holding something in your hand, you shouldn't get the radicals mixed up. So here you have ichi, ni, and then you have this san radical sort of comes across diagonally. San, shi, go, roku. So that's doyobi no do there. Roku, nana, hachi, and kyu. It's interesting. I looked up this bottom part because I wondered if that had a meaning. Never really looked into that. But apparently it is a unit of measurement in Chinese. It's about 3.03 centimeters. And it's called a sun. Anyway, what came up when I plugged it in was this word, which is one. And then you have the sun here, which is that little unit of measurement. And it's read chotto. Now, Japanese don't usually, write this out in kanji like this. They write it out in hiragana. But I thought it was really interesting that this basically meant one sun, which is a little thing, 3.3 centimeters, so representing something very small.